as you see, the camera is mounted on the outside of the track. I would always prefer to have the camera on the inside of the track so that the camera is closest to lane 1. It's easier to view the hip numbers of those athletes that run in events that do not finish in their lanes. For example, the 800, the 16, the 32, the 4x8. It's easier to view when the camera is on the inside their hip numbers, as opposed to this scenario where you've got a view across 7, 8 lanes to be able to see the hip numbers. Whether it's mounted on the inside or the outside of the track, do know that you do not need to show all 8 lanes. For example, here's an 8-lane track, and we only see the first 7 lanes. We know that this guy here, the maroon finishing, he's in lane 8, but we do not need to see his feet. The torso is needed to be exposed, and so is the hip for identification, but we do not need to see the feet. That gives us the ability to mount the camera closer to the track and not needing to accommodate all 8 lanes. We see here she's in lane 7. We don't see her feet, but we know that she's in lane 8. Whether it's on the inside or the outside of the track, the camera can be positioned closer than you might think. So here's a situation where you might want to think about using a second camera on a common finish. You may have a camera that's going to be great for the laned races, as we looked at in the last example. Here we have a second camera that's just simply at a lower level across the lanes so that we can read hip numbers a lot better. See how sharp that is? That's a lot easier identification. It's different with line scan mode because you're going to have a line scan image and probably a forward-facing camera to assist with this. However, video mode, which a lot of timers like, can also benefit from a 2-camera situation. If it's a laned race, you select a camera that's wider in field of view. If it's a non-laned race, you just go in and select the camera that's been preset for a tighter field of view like we see here. And let's jump back to see how meet management can actually assist the timer based on what's happening in the field of view. In this example, I asked the starter, who in this track meet is also the lap counter, to do his thing in view of the camera. So let's see how that can help the timer. Here we see the starter, or the lap counter, is actually pointing to the ground in the view of the camera, which I asked him to do, so that the timer, when reading the race, knows, for example, this guy still has a lap. He's circling. He's got a lap. He's going to keep going. So we know we're not going to include him. So now we know this person is finishing. He's pointing at the track. And so it goes with circling and pointing, so the timer knows who's finishing and who's not, because the bookmarks are being placed on those athletes that are finishing only. And so that's just one way that the meet management can help the timer to get through a race as quickly as possible. And it's just about communicating and asking the lap counters do their thing in view of the camera. Before we end the video, let's go to how this track meet ended. It was an early high school track meet in April at a college facility that did not have lights. There were too many teams and it just went too long. And so as a timer, I was forced to time without adequate lighting. Here we have the 3200 at the end of the night, and let's just take a look at this. It's just really, really difficult to get a sense of the athletes. There are some things we can improve. Let's go to the Enhance tab, and we can start with contrast, and we can begin through a lightning process and trial and error of these 3 variables, gamma, brightness, and contrast, to improve the image after the fact. And so here we can more adequately see the hip number. We can see hip number 4, and we can see what's happening at the finish line. Of course, we have our helper here that's pointing at the finish line for those who are finishing and doing so in view of the camera and the timer. So there we can see that that's hip number 5. Let's go back to the default setting, and you can barely make it out. But again, the Enhanced tab can help clear a lot of that low light issue up during a race, before a race, and as we see here, after the fact. And so hopefully you enjoyed this video. We saw a few different things that can help with the field of view, with the camera placement, with lightening the image, and keep some of these things in mind as you time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.